This episode is brought to you in part by Barton Cane, revolutionizing gouged, shaped, and profiled bassoon cane with precision, consistency, and love since 2012. Leave the cane processing to us. Free up time to practice, take a romantic dinner cruise, or cuddle on the couch with your cat on a rainy day and listen to Double Reed Dish. Enter coupon code Double Reed Dish rocks my world, no spaces, for free shipping on your next Barton Cane order. That's www.bartoncane.com.
Singin' Dog Double Reed Supplies is an online double reed shop and one of the largest suppliers of high-quality and affordable professional and student reeds for oboe and bassoon in the USA. Please visit them at www.singindog.com to see all of their products.
Hi, I'm Galit Kaunitz.
And I'm Jackie Wilson, and you're listening to Double Reed Dish,
a podcast for oboists,
bassoonists,
and the people who love them.
So it is not even 7 a.m. yet.
Last night, you oh so kindly texted me, 8:30 your time, heart. And I really appreciated that because you know me too well.
Yes. Oh my gosh. We're waiting to record an interview with someone from Europe. So those are always early interviews. This is not our earliest European interview, but we thought let's crank out the dish at the same time because this last week was, for me, the first week of school. Mm-hmm. And we have been so busy. I feel like our text ratio for the week went down significantly. You've got a huge project coming up. Talk to me about how you've entered the new academic year.
I have a stress rash on my face. So it's going well so far. I am doing everything online so far. Mm-hmm. It has been very interesting. I'm starting my 6th year at USM, which is very exciting, but also scary because I'm turning in my tenure dossier on Monday.
It's Saturday for reference for the listeners. Yeah, send her a virtual high five if you think of it as you listen.
Technology is not my strongest strength, shall we say. And we have transitioned to a fully digital dossier submission, which has been oh so confusing for those of us who are not technologically inclined. So that's been an adventure. And plus we just finished the 2nd week of class. And I think the transition to fully online class has actually been pretty good. I wonder if we should talk about our setups actually, because I've been pretty pleased with what I've been able to do. I've been kind of surprised at how smoothly it has all been going. In fact, one of my students, I was able to help her adjust her oboe and make it work again. Mm-hmm. So what has been working for me, if you listen to the last episode with Linda Beth Binkley, she mentioned using a 2-camera solution. So a camera on your face and a camera on your hands. So that is what I've been doing for reed class and for helping with adjustments and repair and things like that. And that has been actually fantastic. And there are some benefits to it too, in that when you have the camera so close to the thing you're looking at, they can actually see it in better detail than in regular reed class. Mm-hmm. And when the students have to do it themselves, they're actually learning more than when I just grab the oboe out of their hands and I'm like, let me just do it.
Yeah.
So I've got a gooseneck phone holder attached to my desk that I can move around I'm using my phone as my second camera And I'm using an app called Epic Cam that is through the phone, but it also connects through the computer so that you can just share on Zoom. You can share the Epic Cam, and it's got different options for video resolution. So you can go really in detail, better than I can on just the camera app on my iPhone.
Mm-hmm.
So that has actually been working pretty well. I know that a dot cam is a good solution for that, but I don't know about you, but I cannot find a dot cam under $600 these days. So
I did find one, but it's on order and I'm expected to get it in October. So yes, your case is rested. And you're using Clean Feed as well,
Oh,
right?
yeah, I am using Clean Feed because sometimes if the student is accessing their Zoom link on their phone or iPad, it can be tricky to adjust the Zoom settings, or sometimes if the connection isn't that good, the Zoom sound can be disappointing, even with, changing all the audio settings like everybody already knows how to do.
Mm-hmm.
So Clean Feed has its limitations. You can only use it with the Chrome browser, so you have to download Chrome. You can use it on an Android phone or a laptop. Any laptop, Mac is fine, but you can't use it on an iPhone or an iPad. So it does have its limitations, but the sound quality is fantastic. So much better than Zoom, actually. So what we've been doing is we've been getting on Zoom and using it for the video, and then muting Zoom, logging into Clean Feed, and using the Clean Feed audio. So
Mm-hmm.
that has been actually working beautifully. And it seems like the connection is a lot more stable too.
Yeah.
What have you been doing?
Well, I've been doing a lot of what you described. The applied teacher community is really strong and communicative. So a lot of
Mm-hmm.
those things have been on my radar, and there's lots of resources. If I'm being honest, the main source of my stress has been my theory class
Oh,
and figuring out how to do that online in a way that is smooth and doesn't trigger my toxic perfectionism.
ooh, why is that so true? You just knifed me in the chest with that phrase.
So it's like I'll have a PowerPoint ready to talk to them about a concept, and then I'll say, okay, and then we'll go and do one in finale, and then we'll, go to a breakout room, and you have to unshare the PowerPoint screen and then reshare the finale screen, and the toggling and the this and that, and
It's clunky.
feeling like I want to be really put together and, this and that. And most of it is stuff I'm putting on myself. But one thing that is really cool for our listeners who are teaching classes or even taking classes is I have encouraged my students to use the private chat.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah, you're like, ask a question, and then that kid who it comes to really naturally just blurts it out. And maybe you have a student who gets it just as much, but they have to think for a second and they don't get the chance to go through the thought process because the fast thinker blurts it out. And I'll say, okay, tell me, is this an extended tonicization or a modulation? Put it in the private chat.
That is brilliant.
Then I'll be like, oh, Michael, your answer is correct. Tell your fellow students how you came to that. And then Michael will explain to the class. But also just as a pipeline of like, especially on a Zoom call, to be like, Dr. Wilson, I don't get this. It's kind of a really vulnerable act. And so I said, put it in the private chat. Hey, could we go over that one more time? Why can't I, double that voice or whatever? And they've been using that. And that has been really cool. So
That is such a good idea.
I've got some wins and some losses, but I'm learning every day. And the students are being really flexible, understanding, and cool about it. So just keeping cool. If you're listening to this as a student listener, just like keeping cool.
You guys are amazing.
If your professors are not telling you they appreciate it, I'm telling you they appreciate it. I feel like I've been ran over by a truck. I stress ate a bag of gummy bears on Thursday. We're doing our best. It's hard. It's really hard.
I really want my rash to go away. I can't tell you how many times I've been like, wait, can you all hear me? Hold on. How do I wait?
Oh, I taught 10 minutes of a class and they couldn't hear me and I couldn't hear them. And or wait, they could hear me, but I couldn't hear them. And I was asking questions and I was like, no one knows the answer. And they're like, put in the chat, they're like, we're talking. Your sound is off. And I was like, oh, great. Cool. Edmund Nielsen Woodwinds has been serving the double reed community for 70 years. Nielsen sells a wide variety of oboe, oboe d'amore, English horn, bassoon, and contrabassoon reeds and cane, as well as reed-making accessories, reed cases, and lafrex. And of course, they have the classic Nielsen wedge knife, which features a double hollow ground and choice of handle size. In addition, they have many other knives available. Nielsen has long been known for their large Heckel bassoon bocal inventory. Fill out their online trial form to find the perfect Heckel bocal for you. For all your double reed accessory needs, Nielsen is ready to help you.
Chemical City Double Reeds is a full-service double reed shop specializing in the sale of instruments, cane, accessories, and sheet music. Double Reed Dish listeners can enjoy free shipping with code DRDISH. Visit them in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, or online at www.chemicalcityreeds.com.
We are so happy to be talking to the great bassoonist, the administrative director of the Imani Winds, and founding member of the Imani Winds, Monica Ellis. Welcome to Double Reed Dish.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
We love to start out by asking our guests how they came to play their instrument. So how did you start playing the bassoon?
Well, the bassoon and me, we go way back. So I've had some amazing teachers for really my entire career, my entire upbringing, and that is how the bassoon came into my life. My middle school band teacher, Mr. Arthur Powell from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where I grew up, introduced the instrument to me. I like to call myself a self-proclaimed band kid. For sure, was in the band programs and starting in as early as third grade. And around sixth grade, I was playing saxophone and clarinet in my middle school band. And then around eighth grade, he said, "Why don't you give something else a try?" And he literally just kind of handed me the bassoon. I did not request it. I didn't have a thought that I wanted to try it out. I just literally was handed the box and said, "What is this?" And he, I think, felt like a challenge would be good for me because I was doing well at the other instruments. And I also play piano pretty seriously from early elementary school all the way through high school, really. So, just music was all around me. So when he handed me the bassoon, handed me the case, I had no idea what it was, like I said, and then took it home, me and a fingering chart, and just kind of started piddling around a bit. And then next thing you know, I'm starting to enjoy it. My clarinet teacher at the time was also a bassoonist. He was a doubler. Still in Pittsburgh to this day, Mr. Koval, Phil Koval, shout out. And he really started me in those beginning years, really months, I would say, to just make sure I was holding the instrument correctly, forming the embouchure correctly. And to this day, I think because I had those very early years and weeks of instruction, that got me off on a good foot. So I wasn't just kind of out there by myself, in the beginning, which can be really difficult for kids, I think. If you get some really early instruction, some really good early instruction, then, that can lead to being successful later on. But anyway, right. So Mr. Koval, he helped me along in those early weeks, months, and then we kind of split our time between the clarinet lesson and the bassoon. And I would say within a school year, he said, "I think you should actually go and study with someone else." And so, again, a wonderful teacher had the foresight to put me along, a path of being with another teacher that he thought would be better for me. So, I'm incredibly indebted to him for that act of graciousness, and so Mr. Pantserev, Mark Pantserev, who at the time was the second bassoonist in the Pittsburgh Symphony, became my teacher that I was with through high school, and who set me up for getting my instrument and auditioning for schools and so forth. So yeah, just a big collection of wonderful, very giving and loving teachers.
How did you decide that music was something that you wanted to pursue in terms of a profession? When did that take shape? And could you maybe talk to us about your educational journey in terms of like college and training in that regard?
Sure. Well, I really did know that I wanted to be a musician from the beginning, and my parents were incredibly supportive. My late father was a musician as well, so a saxophonist, jazz saxophonist. So it was in my blood and just just in my surroundings very much so. And when they saw that early that early interest, I'll give you guys, speaking of dish. So this is the family myth. Well, I guess maybe not myth, but the family story, whatever, is that when I first tried the clarinet, I had a natural embouchure. So, I just didn't like plop my lips on the mouthpiece, but, I formed an embouchure that was seemingly just naturally done. So, they're like, she's going to be a musician. It's going to happen. She'll follow in the footsteps, And that like maybe is true. There's could have been some truth to that. I can neither deny nor confirm the aforementioned assertion. But anyway, right. So they saw that early interest and cultivated it. They didn't like smash it down and just said, okay, well, let's get her into this, let's get her into that. And I really didn't do other stuff. I wasn't like I never took ballet lessons. I never went and took, pottery lessons or anything. It was really just all about being on this musical track. So once again, I'm eternally grateful for their support and them developing what was there. And so that the teachers, I think, were able to just take that home life molding and continue it. So then, all of that other stuff that I was just talking about through middle school and high school, and I got into the youth orchestras in Pittsburgh. There were a couple of youth orchestras at the time. And growing up, by the way, in Pittsburgh was amazing. It's an amazing place to grow up because there were so many just opportunities, and the public school systems were amazing. There was a after school a Saturday program that I went to for 10 years. So from whatever that would be, math, whatever, fourth grade or whatever, all the way through college, through high school. It was called Centers for Musically Talented, right? And so I would stay all day there, free program through the public school system. I would go to one of the public schools, and there were lessons, chamber music, coachings, and so I was playing chamber music, playing piano, and in the 10th grade, playing like Mendelssohn something or another, chamber music. So just amazing opportunities were happening around me. So I'm really grateful for those experiences. So Mr. Pantserev, he said, well, here's where you should lead, where you should go. And he led me to audition for certain schools, and I ended up at Oberlin for my undergrad. I auditioned for Oberlin, Eastman, and Indiana. And so we my mom and I, got in the car and went those directions, and due west and north from Pittsburgh. And yeah, Oberlin, it was really just an incredible fit. It was like literally the sun came out, from snowing in Rochester, they were those two were happened to be on the same weekend. And it just fit so well, and we loved it, the campus and the energy and the vibe there. And when you talk to us OBs, we really love Oberlin. Like this, it's weird, it's a strange sort of affinity that we have for our alma mater. And wherever you go, don't of course nowadays we can't walk around so much, but before quarantine we would if you walk around with a sweatshirt of Oberlin, like in any given place, public vicinity in New York City, then you will meet somebody who went to Oberlin. For it to be such a small school, it's like, how are we everywhere? For there's only 2,500 people in any given time in the campus. So, but anyway, yes. Study was George Sakakini there at Oberlin. Again, very influential teacher for me. And then for grad school, I headed to New York because I had a boyfriend at the time who lived in New York. And so I was like, oh, maybe I'll audition for Juilliard. Like, okay, that sounds as good as anything, right? Sure. That's actually a true story. I'm not even joking. Like he was from New York and was living there. He had finished his grad work elsewhere. I met him at Oberlin and he came back to New York to do work, to start his career. And so I auditioned for Juilliard, Manhattan School, Yale, Manus, and yes, ended up going to Juilliard to study with Frank Morelli. Yeah, I mean, so I went the usual route with my education, but nowadays I think kids are just so much more informed, which is good, by the way. I don't necessarily suggest doing it the way I did it. Be informed about the teachers, be informed about the experience you're going to have. But for me, it was kind of just a little instinct and a little bit of kind of just faith of this is where I need to be at this point in time. So I think because we have so much opportunity to get information nowadays, it's a good thing. But at the same time, you kind of just have to go on feel too, and do what feels right, do what seems right, as opposed to say what is right on paper and the data that you've collected, because you've studied this teacher and that teacher and this job teacher will get you this job, and so yeah, I mean, if I had gone another direction, who knows where I would have ended up, in my life and career would have been much different. So yeah, there's the story, more or less, of how I ended up where I am. At least in New York City, a whole lot more happened. Which we did.
So you mentioned having faith and being okay with a certain level of risk. And that, I would imagine, very much contributed to jumping into a chamber music career over an orchestral career. Yeah. Or a teaching career. And I would love to know more about your decision to kind of strike out on your own in this really cool, and it ended up being very successful way, but probably at the time you didn't know.
Yeah, no, you're right. No, we didn't know. Well, Valerie Coleman, in all her wisdom and guidance, she knew. Mm. And she really is a special person on many levels, because she knew what Imani Winds could be and eventually developed into. But yeah, how do I choose to be a chamber music musician? I don't even think it was that. It was again, the benefit of being in a city like New York, or not like New York, because there's nothing like New York. But being in New York City. After I finished my master's at Juilliard, I actually went up to Manhattan School of Music to do a post-grad thing with Frank for another year. Basically, I was like, I don't think I heard anything you said for the last 2 years, so I just wasn't really paying attention. Could I like try a third year somewhere with you, wherever it is? Yeah, I don't know. So he said, the artist diploma program at Juilliard is, crazy hard to get into. And so he said, come up to Manhattan School, audition for Manhattan School, the orchestral performance program, and let's see what happens there. And so I did that. And so I ended up being there for a year. In the program, and it was just kind of started, actually, I want to say, and this is in 96. 96, 90, 97, 98. Sorry, I graduated from Juilliard in 97. So 97, 98. And so, yeah, obviously, orchestral performance program, you're talking about studying for doing mock auditions, preparing for that route, and certainly you go into college as a or oboist, a bassoonist, clarinet, whatever, these orchestral instruments, with that being kind of the route you're going to take. But New York kind of took over for me. What I mean by that is that the opportunities here allowed for me to just do a million other things. I found myself in trios here just to make a little bit of freelance money, and I was in something called the Ebbetsfield Trio, and the old timers, you guys have no idea what I'm talking about, Ebbetsfield, but folks that know. And with a dear friend of mine, David Hatner, who conducts out in Portland now and has been for many, many years. He's a clarinetist. And we would go do these trio gigs at nursing homes and other types of unfamiliar or non-traditional venues. So that was early on. So I was doing that for a little while. I was doing some ringer work, because people need bassoon players. I was playing in this amazing group called Absolute Ensemble, that is electroacoustic chamber orchestra that was kind of starting at the same time. So folks were just doing interesting things and asked me to be a part of it. And next thing you know, that route of freelance, not even Imani Wins so much, but freelancing and just popping around and doing a little bit of private lessons here and there. And I started at Juilliard's MAP program, the music advancement program, teaching there. That started to take more of my time than actually preparing for auditions. And I did a handful. I certainly did a handful of auditions, but that was just more interesting to me, to just do other stuff and to, still be playing at a really high level, but not just strictly on dealing with excerpts. And yes, so Imani Wins, really at that very time in 97, was when all of us got the call from Valerie Coleman, our founding flutist, who had this idea. And she said, you don't know me, but I've gotten your name from different places, and I'd love to tell you about this idea that I have. And next thing you know, the five of us are sitting in a practice room in it was Manhattan School, playing something or another, maybe Nielsen, I don't know, something. And she, many years later, she would talk about how she just, had all the feels, as we say nowadays, all the yummy feels about what this could be. And the rest of us were kind of like, okay, see you later, whatever. But, I think when I do look back on it, it was something what special was occurring in that room, in those first few moments, that we, to the point where we wanted to come back, we wanted to come back to each other and try it again. And then we wanted to do that again and again and again. And so of course it developed into what has now been 23 years of a career. But it was, I had no intention of saying I'm going to be a chamber music musician. That was not the case. I, again, was just really into a bunch of different things. And that is what I was cobbling together a career of, income. And some people really, really, really want to play in an orchestra, so they focus on that route. I didn't have that specific desire, but I did not have it either. So I think eventually one thing just kind of won out over the other.
Mm-hmm. Kind of along those lines, and I know this is a big question, so maybe it's just kind of something more to chew on, but something Galit and I have been discussing a lot lately in our friendship with this pandemic is kind of this notion of not going back to normal. And how in the beginning for me, that was a very scary thing. I wanted things to go back to normal. And now I'm kind of viewing it differently in terms of we've had to get, as a field, a lot more creative. And we've also had to question who we are relevant to and whom we are serving and in what ways. And we've talked a lot about the importance of being interdisciplinary and creative and inventive and relevant to perhaps just beyond who classical music has been primarily relevant to. And these are all things that Imani Wins was doing far before it had to be thought of, you know. And so I guess I would be interested in, I know it's too big to ask, how did you become what you became? But there had to be many points along the line where you had an idea and then you made it a reality, or you had an idea that had never been done before and it happened, or there was repertoire that didn't exist and you had to find it. So I guess your experiences in that regard, and if you have any advice for those of us as we're contemplating how we come out of all of this.
Yeah, no, it is a big question, but it's a good one. You know, I think it's good to ask these big questions while we're in the midst of the uprisings that we're having, as well as the pandemic. And some good has to come from all of this, right? So it's good to be sort of contemplating on all of it. And yeah, you know, we were so fortunate to have the composers in the group, Jeff, Scott, and Valerie, that we constantly had new ideas coming, new artistic ideas coming to us that were really from their brains, you know. And so you know, we talk to people all the time, to young artists all the time, saying that you need multiple people in your camp. You know, you can't, it's cool to stay in our little box of a practice room and deal with Marriage of Figaro, because that's very important, and your arpeggios or whatever. But at a point, for anything, whether it be the playing itself or something more broad, like what you want to start in terms of a career or a focus, it is important to have a lot of people that are surrounding you who you can connect to, and who will potentially be lifelong partners in any given venture. And so with us, that was definitely the case. And so their artistic visions and ideas and concepts led and drove ultimately what you're talking about, Jackie, of the types of things that we did that were innovative and addressing social consciousness and social justice, and highlighting figures in our world that hadn't been done, particularly the African American community. So you know, we had those people in our world, but they couldn't have survived without the rest of us, the other three of us, and then the other three of us couldn't have survived without them bringing those ideas to the fore. So you know, the process, I guess the journey is really that one of collaboration. It's one of partnership. It's not a solo. I mean, it's truly the essence of chamber music in that sense, where, you know, you've got different people bringing ideas to the table in a constant way that is going to flourish into something that is way more powerful than something that you can just do on your own. And at the end of the day, that's what even being in an orchestra is about. You know, they're not that different from one another, because yes, you got to get there by yourself. But once you're there, it's the power of the group that is why it is so powerful being in an orchestra. So so what the heck else am I talking about? You're right. So you're, you know, some of the things that we did, I think that were so monumental for us was those early projects. I mean, we did a project based on the life of Josephine Baker that, you know, happened going on probably like 15 years ago now. That was one of our early commissioning projects, where a composer named Fred Ho, Asian American composer, that wanted to write about Josephine Baker and her children and the ethnicities of her children. That very thought led to us putting on a whole concert that highlighted her work, her history, her stake in, you know, not just African American culture, but in the world's events. So anyway, you know, we went outside our circle to find him and that again led to this big project that we toured and collaborated with other musicians and artists on. So, you know, where are we now? We are doing where we, to get to the point of your question, your thoughts and your comments. We're in a place now where we do have to be more innovative, where we do have to kind of think about the new normal. And by the way, I should just say, I want things to go back to normal too. Like, I can't wait. You know, yeah, I'm sitting at home like, when can I get on a plane again? Because I love the Delta Lounge. You know, like, I love the Delta Lounge. When can I come back to you, Delta Lounge? So, yeah. So, you know, I went through a probably not so different than a lot of other people went through a period at the early parts of the pandemic now, some months ago, of real remorse. And I mean, you know, I was really sad, not only because of the people that were dying and the society that we are living in for that to even occur, but yeah, you know, we're losing our, not just income, but just our purpose. You know, it was like, how do we find purpose in what we do as artists when we are specifically supposed to connect with people, and that is literally being cut off, like done. You cannot connect. That's the very thing you cannot do right now. And so, right. So, you know, we're in this world of technology being so much a part now of what our lives consist of. So, you know, we do have to allow for us to be much more open, much more receptive of newer ways of thinking about creating art and creating those connections. And I think it's working very interestingly. You know, it's not the same, absolutely not. And we will slowly come back to our lives, but it is an interesting way that technology now has come into our lives to still meet people, you know, but just in a different way. I've completely answered a question you didn't ask, but
Yeah, we love that.
But that's all I got. Yeah.
As a follow-up question to that, while you were speaking, I was just thinking about, you know, all of the future music majors, current music majors who are entering this career at this very strange point. And I would love to know what your advice would be to them for people who want to make a musical career but don't have that foothold yet. You know, right. I personally believe that we need to nurture skills like administrative skills, entrepreneurial skills, accounting skills, right? Like all of these different interdisciplinary sciences or art forms where we can merge and create, each person can create something that only they can do the way that they do it. And I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on that and your advice to these creative and enterprising young people who are entering a world that we don't know what it looks like yet.
Yeah. And right. You know, I wish I had more answers than I ultimately do, to tell you the truth. I'll tell you what my literal instinct is, and it could be my, you know, naive optimism, but my instinct is that stay the course. My instinct is that we will ultimately come out of this, and what you had in mind for your life 6 months ago that then immediately changed 3 months ago doesn't have to be what you are 6 months from now, if that makes any sense. You know, you can stay the course of what you were planning for your life in the midst of this, because I think we need something to ground us. I think we need to have we need to feel like what we were before all of this happened. There's some semblance of that is remaining. I think it can be, especially for, you know, younger people coming like right out of school or even still within school, whether it be undergrad, graduate programs, you know, you're still trying to figure it out, right? So if you say, oh, well, I've got to do all these other things because the world now has smacked us in the face and forced us to be in this alternate reality, it can be very jarring. Now certain people can take it and just run with it and create these other opportunities for themselves, and that is incredibly I acknowledge that as an incredible thing to do, but also don't beat yourself up if you don't learn Russian in the next 3 months. Because do something with all this time we've been given. You know what I mean?
Right.
Well, okay, it's okay to stay in your lane, I think, in a good way. It's okay to, like I'm saying, stay the course, because again, that lack of, we're already in this place that is so that the bottom's been pulled out from under us. So I need to just keep doing what I'm doing, and I know what I'm doing. Now, at the same time, to your point, I think we do need to start thinking outside the box, but if you spread yourself too thin, it's going to dissipate. But I'm a big proponent of, before the pandemic, of understanding some of the things that you just talked about. Administration when it comes to in the arts, simple accounting skills, simple bookkeeping skills, and that leads to what my other job within Imani Wins, which is administrative director of the group, which really houses all sorts of roles, really. But yeah, these are skills that we should be cultivating regardless of what's going on in the world today. For that matter, what is going on in social justice and what's happening on the streets of our cities in this country, these are things that we should have been talking about before George Floyd got murdered in front of our faces. Equity and inclusion, diverse positions of power. This is stuff that, why did it take for that horrific act to occur that, now we got to think about this, And so yes, of course it did happen. And in a way, we're like, finally the world is seeing what people of color and marginalized communities have been going through and have been talking about for decades and even generations. So, there's something in you that says, well, yeah, it's good that people are finally seeing it and real change has a chance to occur. But again, it shouldn't be because these terrible things have happened. It's because it's the right thing to do. It's because it's the right way to be coming back to being a musician in today's time. Granted, learn how to do a blog. I don't know. Learn how to, create a podcast is what I meant. Learn things that are outside of your skill set, but be okay with staying within what you know and love, because ultimately that's what's going to power you through when all of this craziness is over. We're gonna need what we know and love and what we are passionate about before this shit happened to sustain us for after we come out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
1000%.
Kind of related, I'd love to hear your thoughts on your experiences as representation in our field. I know I have told you were the first woman of color I saw holding a bassoon, and I have heard colleague after colleague after colleague say the same thing to you or say the same thing to Toyin. And maybe Valerie knew, but I wouldn't be surprised if you guys weren't necessarily aware of, we are going to be these role models. We're going to be these people in subsequent musicians' lives who they really look to in this, to function as this representation of, we're going to be the first people who look like them, who make them feel like I can too. And I know that you and many of your colleagues have been asked a lot of the past month or so in terms of, being a representation. And that I just think that may not be, I wasn't thinking of being the only, Indigenous bassoon player when I stepped into this. So, what are your experiences in that? And I'd just love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Well, it's incredibly humbling, and it just brings just a smile to my heart to hear people say these sorts of things that I was like you just said, Jackie, that I was the first person that you saw, first Black woman you saw playing this instrument, and that you know I think being a role model is not something you step into. You don't say, I'm going to grow up and be a role model, and not that you're suggesting that whatsoever.
Those
And
people are creepy.
those people are creepy. That's what you want to stay away from. Right. Well, thank you. But right, you're just kind of going about the work and pounding away at the work and just hoping that you're making a difference. And lo and behold, as that happens, the years go by, you start to realize, wow, this is happening. This we are being put into this position, and as a result, whether you like it or not, people ask your opinion, and people want to know what you think and want to know where you're coming from, because you do have this very specific life experience. And so personally, I've taken it in stride. I'm humbled by the idea that I am now have become a role model for younger musicians, and especially Black and brown women playing my instrument. So it's an amazing feeling. It truly is. And so I'll say, in the last, like you said, it's a month and a half or so, there's been a little level of exhaustion. It's true. But really,
I cannot imagine.
It's been a lot. It's a lot, a lot. But and of course, the person you have to have a personality, I think, that like can kind of be okay with it. I've taken the request to be a representative in stride. I guess I've taken the request to be a representative of my gender, my race, my instrument, my career path, with a lot of desire to invoke change, and hopefully be that continuation of a role model. So, when you are kind of thrusted into it, you can't just back away. I mean, you could, you can do whatever you want, but I think a responsibility does start to take form, and it's necessary to absolutely make sure you're taking care of yourself, and self-care, so that you don't have any burnout, or you're not becoming something that you didn't think you want to be. But also realizing that this place you're in is important to other people. And as a musician, I'm back to, you can't just live in that little box of a practice room that we sometimes find ourselves in. We literally connect to other people, want to connect with other people, and to fulfill what our passions are. And so if that means it's separate from literally just the sound that's coming out of my instrument, and actually has gone into this other place of being somebody to a whole other host of other people, then so be it, I have to be okay with that. I personally feel like I got to be okay with being this representative, because first of all, I'm very proud of who I am. And I'm the wallflower, so I'm okay with talking about it. And I'm glad people are asking, frankly. At the end of the day, I'm glad that there is a desire to want to know my story and to want to know the experiences that I've had, because I feel really confident that it will help other people to be empowered to tell their own stories. So, I got to be okay with that. Like, if I'm not, I need to be in another profession, frankly. and that's not, I hope that's not coming off as judgmental, because everybody has their own journey. And that's not to say that if you're a Black musician in classical music, you have to talk about it. No, what I have to do is practice my thirds. That's what I have to do. And what I have to do is find a good read. That's what I have to do. You know what I'm saying? Like, I do not need to be your token. I do not need to be the person to come to, because you need to have some, education on what it's like to be me, right? But at the same time, I get it. So there is a duality in kind of walking in along this journey that you want to just do your thing, but by doing that you have to recognize how you affect other people, and be okay with that communication, that education. And again, the role model part is it's just awesome. It's just really awesome. I mean, to know that you're having the positive effect on so many other types of people, especially girls, like the girl power thing. That's really powerful to me. So yeah, there we go.
I have another question. It's maybe a little more literal. You've been in a chamber group for over 20 years, and there's a lot of like interpersonal dynamics. And, we're both in a position of
Boy, is
playing in chamber groups and also like teaching students how to play, and how to collaborate and rehearse. And you've been able to do it successfully. I mean, the original five were together for quite a long time before there were even any, personnel changes. So I'd love to hear kind of your experiences and approaches to chamber music rehearsals in terms of, collaborating with people and doing it successfully.
Sure. Yeah. Whew, yep. That's a biggie. That's a big one. Yeah, you're right. 17 years was what we were 17 years before there was any personnel changes. And so, we grew up together in a lot of ways. We literally became functioning adults with one another. I sometimes say being in a chamber group it's all kinds of things. It's like a marriage. It's like friends with no benefits. You're constantly in a therapy session with a psychiatrist. Then it's just like you're having a beer with a friend. Like there's so many levels, and then you're making this very powerful music too. So it runs the gamut of social experiences, I suppose. I feel like there should be like an anthropological study on chamber groups, because we're this different breed of people. And over the years, we've met a million of our colleagues, just on the festivals and circuits and concert series. And they all have similar experiences, It's a very intimate experience. You're giving of yourself through your music, through your instrument. And so, it has to be, it's the epitome of give and take. So there has been, we had some blowouts in the beginning, and throughout, for Pete's sake, there's all sorts of stories that can be told. But I think with us and what we do, try to talk to younger groups and whomever really about our experience, is that from day one, even with Valerie's feeling of, even Valerie's vision of knowing and having a sense of what the group would become, it was still a democratic feeling about it. It was still a democratic process. We never had, an artistic director, so to speak. There was never one person that was driving the bus that much, to the point where other people didn't have that vested interest. And so I do feel like that has a huge aspect to why we've been successful for all these years, because the contribution of everyone counted. Now, I will say that led also to some times when we just didn't move things along as quickly as we could have. So it can be difficult to get it moving when you have to hear everyone's opinion, whether that is about the length of this quarter note or what are we going, our 5-year plan, you know what I mean? So yeah, everyone's contribution can sometimes be a little difficult for progress. However, in the long run, our experience has been that that's really what's necessary to have that sustainability, because then you feel like, okay, this is where I want to kind of plant my roots and you know, contribute for some long period of time, or at least a substantial period of time. So yeah, it certainly wasn't all roses at all, you know, but I think, you know, and of course there was Valerie's whole point of bringing together people from similar cultural backgrounds, allowed for when things did get a little hot, a little tight, you know what I mean? Like just like, I gotta get out of here, you know. Then we could like let off the steam by just talking about Stevie Wonder, you know what I mean? and Prince, right? So, you know, there was the opportunity for us to just have the exhale moments, if you will, because we felt so familiar with one another before you even picked up the instruments, and that led to the concert stage. That feeling, those all the feels, you know, like that was important for us because people could recognize that on the stage. You know, we were never phoning it in. We were having fun on stage. We were laughing on stage just like we were 10 minutes prior backstage. And I think that energy was, and we hope is still infectious, that people really want to just kind of grab hold of and experience for themselves. But yeah, I think as best that you can, it's important when having your own group to make sure everybody is truly a part of it. You know, there's going to be a leader in one way or another. Again, I took on a leadership role early on when it came to administrative aspects of the group. And so that certainly allowed for us to keep it going, you know, and to be in, to not get bogged down with minutia and you know, I people in the group trusted me so I can make decisions, you know, in whatever given instance. So of course you have to have that, but I think artistically, if it's possible to have that group feeling, then that's going to lead to something really special. We talk very often about the sixth member of Imani Wins, which is Imani Wins. We speak about that all the time. Like there's the five of us, and then right in the middle is all of us, and that's literally another entity. It's a, you know, you give of yourself so much and sacrifice so much for that entity, but then that's what ultimately needs to be just as successful as you as the individual in order to have the longevity.
That is beautiful and very refreshing.
Would you tell us about a favorite memory you have from a past performance?
Let's see. It's hard not to say that any time we spent with the great Wayne Shorter is not up there with the favorite memories. Now, you know, going back again 12, 13 years ago, we had the incredible opportunity to work with Wayne Shorter, amazing, iconic jazz saxophonist and composer. And he was commissioned on our behalf to write for us. And it was the first time he wrote for a group that he wasn't a part of. And so that was very monumental in and of itself. And so when he heard us play the piece that he wrote for us, he was inspired himself. And within a matter of 6 months, we were traveling with him. He had decided to arrange some of his other works for us to play with his quartet. So it was the 9 of us, and we, you know, premiered the project at the Montreal Jazz Festival. And then later that summer went all over Europe. And then the following year, you know, had concerts at Hollywood Bowl, Disney Hall, Carnegie Hall. And so those experiences, you know, it wasn't even us, like, that's just it, but it was still the most, it was with other people. But it opened our minds up so much. I mean, just rehearsing his piece, which by the way, we recorded it as Terra Incognita, and it had so much detail to it, just the notes themselves, but hardly no detail when it came to dynamics, tempos, articulations, but the music it's very dense, very layered, very, all beautifully written, not simple at all. But like how to play that music was totally up to us. And that was something we had not experienced to that level, at least up until that point. And so he literally heard us play it and he said, "Oh, it sounds great. So next time you don't have to start at the beginning." What? What are you talking about? We don't have to start at the beginning. Like, what do you mean? That doesn't even comprehend. Like, oh yeah, you can start in the middle and play something else. So just he opened our brains up to a style of playing that I think we would like to think we've continued on to this day, that isn't just improvisatory. It's not like don't play what's on the page, but bring a new type of energy to the music every time you do play it. So those are some of the most absolute memorable moments of our career, I think, not just because of the profile of the venues, but just being around those incredible musicians who we to this day consider our friends and colleagues and mentors even. And I have to say also, we did a tour in China about 7 years ago, and several concerts around the country. And I gotta say, that's pretty dang memorable to come to a country that has, did not have a lot of experience seeing wind quintet on their stages, and hearing the music that we came with. But the reception was just so incredible, and we were so well received, and it was so warm. And so those were, and the concert halls, just magnificent structures, so that those concerts and that being in that culture was truly like no other experience on the planet for us.
That's amazing.
It is a double read podcast, so we have to ask about reads. Could you talk to us a bit about maybe your setup, and if there's any read advice you'd like to pass along to our listeners?
Sure. Well, my setup is I play on my beloved Fox 201, which is actually the only instrument I've ever had. I got it when I was a senior in high school, so it's the same horn I still play on. Back to Mr. Pantserev, Mark Pantserev, who helped me, my high school teacher. He facilitated getting that instrument for me. And vocal wise, I play on a Lightsinger, a silver, one of them fancy Lightsingers. I can't remember the name of it, but I've had, for the last probably 10 years, I've been on Lightsingers, and I really, really love them. I think, they're incredible vocals, and I know his instruments are really great these days too. So yeah, that's the setup on that front. Reads, right. So about that, I don't make reads anymore. I had for a very long time just gone with gout shape profile cane already, and had gone away from profiling and shaping, and gotten the cane from Miller Marketing. Number 14 shape. I had gone away from doing gout shaping profile for a long time. And I would say in the last year, I decided that it was just too time consuming for me to make reads anymore. Legit, right? Yeah. I know. I've never really been that good at it. I was never like super good. I felt like it was just, a means to an end.
Same.
Yeah. Right. So it was just a chore for me. But obviously I had to do it. I wanted to play the bassoon, so got to do what I got to do. So progressively I've just gone from, the whole process to getting the cane already GSP to now not even doing that. And I'd love to shout out who's making my reads, Ryan Morris. And so look him up, Ryan Morris. He actually came to our chamber music festival, Imani Wynn's Chamber Music Festival, which would have had its 10th year this year. But we'll be back next year. He came to the festival in the early years, like year 2 or 3 or so. Amazing bassoon player and a really, really talented reed maker. And so I kind of contacted him and said, how do you feel about maybe making some reads for me and seeing about doing that all the time? And fingers crossed. And so he said, wow, I'd be wonderful. And we talked about he knew what I was doing beforehand. And so, yeah, this is a thing where I felt like I needed to I'm not an expert at it, and it would just hinder my progress. And he's very, very good at it and very detailed at it. And, just was better. So I feel like it's the best money ever spent because you realize that time that I was taking trying to come up with the best read and the best setup was being it was not being utilized. That time was not being utilized to the best of its potential. So same cane, the Miller Select 14 shape, but the blanks are being made by him now. So I'm very, very happy with this. And by the way, the success rate has gone through the roof. It's because of the consistency that he provides that I just couldn't do.
That's how they do it in Europe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's exactly what you're talking about with surrounding yourself with people whose skills complement yours.
There you go. There you go. Yes, you can do that, whether it's chamber music, whether it's an accountant, whether it's, a reed maker. Yeah, you have to, to use a poker term, got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away. I guess that's more Kenny Rogers. But anyway, he was talking about poker. Yeah, absolutely. Find people that will make what you're doing better and easier because there's just not enough hours in the day. And, I wouldn't suggest this as a student. You should absolutely study reed making and know what you have to do. But, nowadays there's specialists, not even nowadays, this has existed for forever, but there's specialists out there for a reason that can enhance your experience, So yes, do that. At the end of the day, those specialists ain't going to practice the horn for you. You still got to do that. You know what I mean? You're doing plenty. Like be cool with that. You're doing plenty to propel the mission, whatever that mission may be, right? So ask for help. It's all good.
Monica, we cannot justify taking any more of your time.
See, I'm just
Thank you so much. We are so honored to have this talk with you and are so thrilled and excited that you were able to join us on the podcast. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies, so much. And keep doing what you're doing. I love it. I support it. And I'm happy to be a part of it. It's great to see you guys out there too, doing your thing. It's
Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Absolutely.
We hope you enjoyed that episode. Monica is awesome. We're tired and cranky. We promise next time we will be better and more refreshed.
Well, they probably forgot how cranky we were because we were so delighted during Monica's interview.
That's true. It was recorded during a different time, a better time. Anyway, don't forget to follow us on social media. And if you wouldn't mind leaving us a rating and review on iTunes, we always appreciate it. Galit, who do we have coming up on the next episode?
This is an exciting one. We will be talking to Peter Cooper, principal oboist of the Colorado Symphony and oboe teacher at the University of Colorado, Boulder. Jackie, time to end this nerd parade.
Go make reads.
Take a nap.
Yeah, take a nap. But reads can wait. I need sleep.